I do stuff. I'm around since some time. Originally, I don't want to talk about my secret project. Yesterday I did anyway, but there's still lots of secrets. So, 2 years ago I started. Oh no, Pierre started Perl 6 mathematics. He wrote a little. I wrote much more too. Where I basically took over the module and expanded it greatly. And this module is what I learned writing Perl 6 module, which is a little bit more complex. And to make the talk interesting and not as boring, it's not that I want to show you here, look, I did this method. Yeah, come on. I'm still on the third disclaimer, so it's good. Yeah, I've gone to the place twice, so I'm good. I'm learning. This project rose out of the need just to learn for exam, where about numerics, where a big part was matrix math, and what best way to learn about it than to implement it, and then at least you feel secure about, you know, at least something about it. Lately, other this year, this is my activity graph. I did some more, and lately some smaller bumps too. But I don't want to bore you. Yeah, come in. Say, look, I've wrote this method and this I solved this, and here I use this line of code because the documentation in Perl 6 is very well, and almost all the part I will talk about are somewhere in the documentation, but not as bundled. And what I want to do, which I think is much more important, is to think about stuff, and not only in a software design way, but only how to make a nice interface which is a joy to use and which also integrates into the Perl 6 world. Yeah, this was the original talk in German, like I said, and this talk will be about that. Because many years ago I had some interesting post I read who compared Perl 5 to medieval castle. You have some princes, some dragons. So you had to conquer pitfalls, but you can discover unknown riches, and it's like so you were so it was highly individual and surprising and exciting, but you never knew what is around the corner, because you could fall into a corner case, and then you may be screwed or not.
Especially if you give a talk about gaming, there's spy tech.
Yeah, and the one who wrote this post compared Perl 6 more to Renaissance garden and Renaissance castle, where everything is straight line and is everything nice, layout and beautiful. And I don't think this comparison is not quite right. I think the better, because it's not Baroque, not yet. I think the better comparison are the English gardens. Because of a simple reason, in English gardens, this one is in Wörlitz, of course, one of the most beautiful we have in Germany. You have a well proportion of water and meadows and woods. It's pleasant to look at it. It's like a mixture of what is nature and what is culture. So, like what is in our head and what is in our world. And one of the big properties of these English garden is, especially this one in Wörlitz I showed you about, you have visual access. So, of course, when you look at this building, you can see here this channel and look right at this golden trophy, which you could also on this building. And there you have in these English gardens have several visual axes when you can look through the but you have to be at certain points. Yeah? It's not from everywhere. But if you stand at a certain point in the garden, you can look very far and have an alignment of several beautiful things, and it's like the world is aligned around you. And Perl 6 similar to that in that way, because not every class is the same. Like in the Baroque way, you have a straight line, because every class, of course, is there to solve a different problem. It has different methods, and it's not everywhere the same. But you have interfaces between the classes, and if you're standing in the right place, they work so nicely together. You write something new, but it fits just together. You wrote two lines, and it's like the reason I mentioned it, your job as a Perl 6 module author is to not screw this property. It looks beautiful. Yeah, and that is basically what my talk is about: is how to make an addition to the garden that makes sense to the problem, but is still beautiful. Yeah, and it's a beauty to use. All right, enough disclaimer. That is the meat. Okay. When you first come to Perl 6, you might almost feel like home. Some things are a little bit different. Yeah, because neat just loads the module without importing anything. A syntax is more useful, and some. Like I said, all the examples that follow are, of course, from my class mathematics. There will be no roles yet. But as yesterday mentioned, there's a lot of things you have to care about, yeah? And more syntax. But we handled this already. But I think my favorite way to think about modules is from the data way. Because even if you don't like objects very much, in Perl 6 is everything organized in objects, and which are data types, although these things are interchangeable. So you have, of course, you have to think in data and data types. Of course, you have to, when you start thinking about your module. Go in, I just started with the interesting part. You have to think, of course, you write your own supporting modules, and we wrote attribute x lazy for our, that was Pierre idea, and I will show you why. Yeah, but I think many things will be much easier if you like make your head up beforehand what you actually try to solve, and what is this for kind of data structure? Yeah, what supporting structure, which modules you want to provide, and of course which data types will you need? Yeah, so you can reuse your own names, which makes your code more expressive. This is just a puny, simple, idiotic example for a positive, and just to demonstrate. Use your own data types. Yes, they are very easy to define, and your signatures will be a lot more descriptive. Yeah, and this is one of the things I would start. Yeah, even before I wrote even before I write much of the code. Yeah, because as we later will see. Even many of the method names will follow it. Yeah? Because if you have your positive int, it's much nicer when you every time you write in this code this one. Yeah? And maybe you give also the optimizer more room before. Yeah, so this is much more preferable. Yeah, of course, because mathematics doesn't accept a matrix with 0 rows. That's not in our scope. Actually, a thing where I differed a little bit with Jonathan is one of the concepts I talked in my lightning talk yesterday is the concept of, I call them class type. I don't know how to name it. It's like types who access the attributes. Because these are not present in Perl 6 yet, I had to write some helper routine who checks against the current size of the rows, so I can in the signatures get a valid index of when I would like to be able to clear that up with with a type checker who can check an index if it's valid for the actual size of it. But all right, even Perl 6 is not perfect. Further on, of course, all the cells of a matrix is numeric, because numeric is a very handy role which cares, like encompasses all numerical types and gives it always the right one. Because in Perl 6 we know integer, we know rationals, we have even fat rats running around. And of course, we have complex. And if you know something about matrices, there are some properties like adjunct and such where even complex numbers make sense. So our module supports even matrices of complex numbers. And to do that, of course, we defined our every cell of type numeric, so it can hold even these complex numbers. This is like one of the basic things you think about before you start. Another thing is in Perl 6 we have, of course, you sigils the container types, but the actual value types are read only. They are like throwaways. You don't change them. And the big thing I also had to think about before I started the deeper design of our module is, do you want to do the same thing? And I thought, yes, I want, because then I can catch all the computation heavy properties. And when I build then a new matrix, then like I throw the content away and I build like a new object. But this is a thing you have to think beforehand. And in this way, we mimic the matrix as a content type, like more like an integer than a container type. This is also a thing you have to make beforehand in your head, so you don't get confused and get a clean API. That's why, like later methods, as you will see, like for instance, one of the most common methods on a matrix is like to invert a matrix. Just to flip rows and columns. And that's why this method, of course we have a shortcut like T because this is international standard, but the name is not invert, but inverted, because we don't invert the matrix itself. Inverted means you get an inverted matrix, a new one. And this is with all operations on the matrix. It returns you always a new value because there are read-only every matrix. This is what I meant like 2 minutes ago, that you have your clean design decision, and these are also reflected in the names of the methods. All right. That's the check method. That's some explanation of the syntax, but I think most of you already know enough Perl 6 to know that one. All right. Of course, we need a constructor for object. And mathematics takes, of course, array of arrays as data. I think this is straightforward. This is like our constructor. It's pretty easy. we have a data checker if everything if all the content is numerical, because non-numerical stuff we don't care about, and then yes, bless is still around. And the reason why we bless is because this call actually calls our build method. Yeah, and this is also important to know what to put in your constructor and what to call in your build method. Yeah. Sorry, just still want to look how we on the time. Great. Because lately I just added a new constructor where you can put a string. It's especially useful if you make here docs like this, yeah, and you have in your code a matrix like this. Everyone knows what that's supposed to be, and the string will give into new, and all I had to do is at first, of course, change this type, and what I did was just convert it into an array of numbers, so we are again good. And this is like the one of the things you'll just love per 6, because when you think, oh, we have this big string and we have to chomp it up and so difficult. I put it here in 2 lines because the slides are big and fat, so you can read it well. But it's normally these 2 lines are just 1 line, and it does the whole jobs. Yeah, I have here the string. It gets chomped up in lines. I map over the lines, give me the words, and map the words to numerics. And I already said numeric is the role who knows all the basic numerical stuff and gives them the proper types. Yeah? That's all. And you can even understand it, even if you don't know much about Perl 6. Yeah? Then I do the check like before, because the conversion to numeric could result in a failure. The size could, the rows couldn't match up because every row has to be the same size. This is get here by the check, and then we bless again. All right. So far, so good. Not any question, no. All right. Like I said, this is what numeric does. This is all the magic. And I think this is a real useful thing to have in code, because for some is this a natural way. Yeah. But we have this build method. Why we have there an extra build method? If we just there's an internal property rows where just the raw data. Why or why? Because there are a lot of special matrices like this identity, and you want to have a special constructor. Also, every numerical system has special constructors for them. Our design question is rather what we do to new to get this. We overload new with multi-message dispatch, or we do something different. And what I considered or decided is we will do something different, because as you already seen, to construct our matrix either with a string or with an array of data is pretty much the same thing. It's just another data type, but you're just putting in the raw data. What we're doing here is something different. We're just giving them one number, as you see in the next slide. You give them one number, and it fills up your matrix. So you don't provide data, you provide other properties. Yeah, that's why I called this new dash, it's dash, yeah, or identity. Yeah, so so the name sticks out more out than if you put it in a signature as a parameter, and actually it gets pretty messy because everything, every of these new or special constructors has their own signatures, and if I overload this all with a multi-method dispatch, it gets very messy. Yeah? And this way it sticks out. We get a new identity matrix. Yeah? Everybody knows what it is, and I can have for identity matrices their own signature, which is of course just this one integer, which gives me the size because they are quadratic. And this whole thing has another advantage, which is here covered in the ... to not overload the slides. As you maybe know from math, if not, do math. If you not have enough fun in your life, do math. It's a lot of fun. Of course, our library has the usual property like rank, kernel, and everything you want to know about the matrix. And as you know, a new identity matrix has a full rank and 0 kernel. It's just the way it is, or it wouldn't be identity. Und has a determinant of 1, of course. And these are properties are pretty much computational heavy. But when we have this constructor, why don't use this advantage? And our build method, which if you're interested, I can show you, but it has a signature that goes over 3 lines. It's pretty heavy. It's because I can, because what build gets is that what you put in parentheses here in bless, which is a lot, that's why I shorten it with ... I can already say this matrix will have a determinant of 1. It has a full rank. It has 0 kernel, and. So I don't have to compute this later. Yeah? And if you have another matrix with we construct it with new, and we have just the raw data, and I later call rank, and this is why we had our attribute x lazy, then, and it's not yet constructed, then we lazily compute the rank, and then we have it in our cache. Yeah? And this way we have it right from the get-go in our cache. Yeah?
And you don't have to worry about it changing because it's immutable.
Yes. I felt such a genius when I came up with this plan. But I think it makes sense so far. Yeah. Maybe you ask what is funny. Of course, this is a type math matrix. Nothing to worry about. In case you wonder about the U, this means undefined. This means new identity you can only call in the form of math matrix new identity. You can't call it on the object, because if you call it on the object, you know that from Perl 5, the first parameter is always the call itself. So when I call it the method on the object, the first parameter is the defined object. So here would have to stand in defined, but for some spurious reason I'm not comfortable with that, and I tell Guido Rossum style the user have to use math matrix dot new identity and not some object dot new identity, and I force my will by writing this. It has to be undefined. All right. Yes. This way. And not this way. If you would have to enter, it would be. Please? Yes. Yes. Exactly. Of course, same goes for the 0 matrix. Has full kernel. It's the same concept, and we have some more. You want to have a diagonal matrix, but it's always the same. Yeah, and that's a principle I explained you into the fist here. You have written out. You have the normal constructors. You have the special constructors, and our custom build method, which cares about all the properties. Yeah. All right. And here is the counterexample where I didn't made special methods but crammed everything in one with multi-method dispatch, because here the situation is totally different. Does somebody doesn't know what a norm is? All right. Basically, a norm is an arbitrary property you can give anything. But a norm is, it has to have three properties. So the identity is to itself is 0. It's like an abstraction of a distance. The more distance, desto bigger. Or let's say it's like abstraction of a volume. The more space taken up by the numbers in the matrix, the more the norm is. So if you have larger numbers, or the numbers in the matrix are larger apart, the bigger the norm gets. Also, it's a very rough description, but that you get your idea. Yeah, it's like mapping the property of the matrix to a linear, because a norm is always one number. So you can compare matrices a little bit. You know, there are many different norms. The usual ones are the PQ, also you have the L1, L2, of course. This means you take every element and you add them all together. Yeah, the P is potent. It's like the power. You take every element with the power to a P, and the rest, and on the end you put a square root of this value as a base at the end. So depending on the P or Q value, they behave a little bit different, but they are the same basic property as. So of course, because this is such a basic thing, our mathematics library needs to have a norm. But I don't want to support. Of course, P and Q are optional. Yeah, of course. If you doesn't supply any of that, you get the normal Euclidean L2 norm. Yeah. Also, the L2 norm is what I just said. It's just a space taken up by the numbers. If you take it as length and height of the matrix in space, and but there are a lot of special other norms. You have the row sum norm or some other norms. Mathematicians are at least in that way, very creative. So to support at least the usual stuff, of course, we have our PQ norm. Yeah, we default. You know what you do at the Pythagoras. You know, you build a square and the normal root at the end, and then, but it should be 2. Maybe is a fault. At the end, and it's like the same extrapolated. If you have the row sum norm, then the parameter is a string, and here we make our own type, but this type is so special, I don't even care about its own type, but it's just, the string has to be just row sum. Yeah, because it will be the only case in the module where we actually use this type, and here's the okay to make it up. Yeah, and this is just how a row sum norm is computed. Here in this case, I maybe mentioned we are mapping, and this star. The enthusiast yesterday who held the lightning talk already mentioned it. The star is in that way nice, because normally when you're mapping, you have to provide a code block, yeah, which you got execute every time you map over a value. If you use a star, that's no longer necessary. So you can even drop some syntax and some things get nicer. Yeah. All right. And the reason why I spent so much time is to get a feeling for it, because on the new side, when it was about new, it really got too complex, and it's a different thing. Because on the base level, we just fill in the value, and on the higher level, we just construct special types of matrices. There are two different things. Yeah, and with a norm, we just compute different norms, and I think it's alright to make here a multi-method dispatch, just and have it all by the method norm. All right, how we on time? You know someone how much we have, or when this ends? All right, all right. No. Can you tell me the time when the talk is supposed to end? Thank you. 10:32. What? Please?
Yes, 11.
11, thank you. All right. Of course, Perl 6 is cool. That it gives you the cloning method for free, but cloning in Perl 6 is not deep, and because we have here arrays of arrays. I mean, fortunately, these values don't change, so we are safe. But at the very, very first, when before Pierre gave it to me, like, oh, I'm now the core maintainer and I make all the decision, but for a while, like, he still had the hat on, and I was not sure. And I was really worried about if we maybe have changeable values, then would be screwed, yeah. And then we would have provide the deep cloning itself. It's just a little warning. Cloning is not deep. Yeah? All right. Marshalling. Now we come to the maintenance stuff, because in the beginning I said your job is to not screw it up. And one part of not screwing it up is to provide the necessities. Yeah, like if you build a building, you need the toilets, you know, also sanitation and some other stuff people really enjoy while living there. And same way as Perl 6, there are some basic stuff you just have to provide so people are happy to use your module. And one of them is the Perl method. It's for marshalling. It just means that whatever comes out of this method, you can eval and you get the method back. Yeah? And you should really provide it. And this is really the whole method. There's not much to it. Is there any question? All right, thank you. This one is crucial. If you leave that out, you're screwed badly. I tripped over this one, and it got me a headache for half an hour or an hour, and then before I solved it. Because, of course, you don't want to override the Perl method for the other stuff. Yeah, it should be just for your method. So, of course, you have the basic data types. That's why I said also at the beginning, you have to think about data types. Because also, like I said yesterday in the lightning talk, objects were invented to have everything in its place, not to be data container. That came later with C++ or others later adopters. And Perl 6 sees this idea, and we even much of it is used object-oriented. We mainly use objects to put everything in its box and have had it sorted. Yeah? And so it's very important you have yourself sorted out the tree of data structure, that you know, there's the ints, there are the rats, there are the boolean, and so you have some overview. You see which are important, which are not, which are make sense to support, which are not support. Because in Perl 6 you have, of course, these context operators, and it's really nice when because you're providing essentially a data type, and when you're converting it into the other data type, that it makes something useful. Yeah? I mean, in that case, I thought of the most useful thing is to look if this matrix is 0, which normally is in numerical things false is like 0, and true is like not 0. This is normally what we expect. And there is a thing even for matrices, to call it 0 is what? Exactly. This is 0 matrix. Yeah. And so if you have such a beastie, then in Boolean context that would be false. I think it's straightforward. Just a reminder to make your housekeeping and provide useful conversions into the basic. In case I forgot it later, also the naming, I use here another method which is part of the object, is these namings. Of course we use often the dash, which is not possible in Perl 5 but in Perl 6, and you should use it. It's optically much more pleasant because it visually looks like something together, and normally you use the underscore to separate things. Yeah, and here can you even visually see that this is one name, does one thing, and the other stuff is the is. The is a narrative in Perl 6 for the Boolean context itself. So methods that return in Boolean, it is without very well rationalized exceptions, always name it is something something. So I know this will give me a Boolean. This is about some Boolean properties. Is this matrix a 0 or is it not? I mean, it is a clear name. We can instantly understand what is meant, but it's also Perl 6 convention. We have this is method, and when I use these methods, I'm in line. This is one of the things I meant. It's not screwing up the garden and not inventing new stuff and make it everything ugly. All right. Basically that's what I just said. Of course, we have the plus signifying the numerical context, which is here the number of elements, which no, it isn't. I have a method. This is my LMs. It's a matrix LMs.
Oh,
I didn't. Yes. I know my stuff better than you. Yeah. But that might. I'm still struggling with this one, but maybe you expect in numeric context the size, which would be a list of 2 elements, rows and columns. Of course, we have the size method, which is straightforward and what you want, and because a number of elements is less useful. But I'm still not sure. But what you basically expect when you use the numeric context is one number, and not a list of number. And my rationale was it might be confusing if you expect a number and you get a list of numbers. What? I'm not yet convinced.
Let's give you a rough size of the amount of memory taken by the matrix. You know what the data type is.
Yeah. But I'm not sure this slide is in the slides because it's a feature what lately come into it. I have also type, so you can ask if what is the widest type in the cells. If there is something complex, of course you want to know, yes. But come later to that. Of course, in string context, I put just continuous elements and split the rows. I'm not convinced that's the best solution, but my main reason was for the variety, because the other thing what you would think of that be the optical representation of the matrix with the rows and columns we had just at the alternative constructor. This we have also. So if you want this, we have this also covered, because what I imagine is the string context is when you want to make a regex onto the context of the matrix, yeah. And when you want some value at the end of the rows, so you match it. have some anchor, you know, and there is this new line, maybe something tricky, and this is something stable, which doesn't change it.
That's the new constructor, string variant of new.
No, not this one. Is what you come later or? No. It's what I showed you.
Yeah, I know, but can you pass that through? Because I would.
This what I make here. Or then I think I don't get your question right.
When we split on lines and words.
Yeah, and when you put on lines instead of words, but then you produce a string that wouldn't be accepted by the stringy form of new.
Yeah, it would be one line and the.
I have another method. What you mean? It should be.
Give it a round trip through that.
Yeah, but I have a method which exactly produce it. But I thought of that. But I would have. It would be nice. For reasons we see shortly, reduce another redundancy, which I also not very keen of. It's still a compromise I'm pondering, but your point is well taken, and I'm considering that too. Yes. I mean, no one uses this stuff. I can still change it. So it's no problem. Yeah, because what you mean is the method gist. Because we all love print or say, and as maybe not everyone of you knows, print or say is limited in POSIX. In the sense it doesn't give you the full dump. If you, for instance, have a very, very long list and you print it out, it prints you just the first 100 elements. And it does that by calling the method gist onto the list or an array. And so it's advisable to do something similar for the matrix. Actually, this is one of the biggest bugs because it currently doesn't work with complex numbers, but this is the thing I'm working on currently because there are some edge cases and to get it right with the formatting. But what I basically do is also if it's too many rows or the rows are too wide, I cut them out, insert some ... so it still fits on the term.
Nice angly one.
What?
Nice angly one? Dots?
No. Just no. I don't know them. You have to show me, but no. Just the regular stuff. So we fulfill the spirit of what is meant by gist. And of course, if you know what, and of course, I do it also for the name. So because you have to be consistent with the purple, because in case you ever tried it, if you put into say just int, it gives you the type int. And to be fully consistent, I even have overloaded this method with a type object, and so it gives you the type name of our object. So we're fully consistent. I care about details, and so it's really beautiful. So, but back to gist. You get your short version. Maybe I should cut out more and put at least the last one. That's up for debate. But like I said, I cut it to fit on term. But if you know what I do and want the full matrix, you just say matrix full, and you get the full blob, whatever it is. Of course, in this format. Like yes, please.
When printing out like long arrays, if you do dot string and force it to a string before saying it.
Sorry. Can you please repeat?
Okay, so when you do dot gist, it doesn't print out too many elements. Generally use it when you're debugging and such. But if you want to make it force it to print all the array elements, you do dot str dot string, and it will do all the elements. So that's something to consider is
Just to name it full, name it string, and have it one. Yeah, I think it is. I think you. I have to fix our problem with just force with the types to get that same, but I think I do that next. Yes, that sounds also advisable to me. Yeah, but currently it's full, but like I said, no. All right, equality. easy to implement. Of course, you want to compare matrices, and the nice thing, of course, you just support. It's just one of the other housekeeping things, the equal method, and then you can just use the operator equals, and he refers to this method. It's all internal to Perl 6, and of course also EQV. Just come, nice bonus. And of course, you want to do accept, which in my case also just refers to equals, because on numbers, smart matching just looks for equality. A 5 smart match against just 5 and not 3. And I kept it that way for matrices that way. So when you can of course smart match matrices, but of course, and that's why you have to provide the accept method. But like I said, it's just the same thing. Just to care about conventions. All right, we're still good. Good. Yeah, and when we are once on, I just recently renamed the method because I think it's more clearer to make cell type. This is also one of the good things, which gives you a type object of the widest cell, and then you can also smart match. Also, I mean, int so you when you want to know if all cells are int and nothing wider, you know, match smart cell type against int, and you get no bad surprises. All right, a map. I also implement my own map, and you might ask why you want to do that. But I think it's many other other matrix libraries provide something, and when you think a little bit, if you have a map, it takes a list and produces a list. So the same thing. So when we have a map on a matrix, it gets a matrix, it returns me a matrix. Yeah. So it maps over all cells. I can do something with that, divide it, add something, and get new map value with whom a new matrix will build. Yeah. In case you want to just map over the cells, you can still list, or you can have your direction of mapping which you prefer. Also, you can map just over the rows or over the columns, or you can just over all cells, if that's what you wanted. If you just want a flat list of all the cells, maybe you want to do that. So with just a little effort, we have all the combination and everything which you could possibly do with them. Because in the end, the matrix is just a chunk of data, and you want to be flexible as possible to manipulate your data. Yes? Please louder.
Means you have first to construct a new matrix with a new operator and then fill it with that,
No, that's the library does the hard work for you. It just if you do matrix.map and then provide your code block, you get the new matrix all together. And if you just take a list, you get a flat list over all elements. Yeah, you have a matrix list, and then can you map? And then this is my map. This is Larry's map. Yeah. And to have this list was so little effort and so useful, because this is one of these view axes I talked at the start again. The view axis I opened up with providing this little list method is enormous. I mean, I also plan about grep and so, but this is other stuff, and we have a reduce. But you have a brain, you can think of what I mean by it. I reduce rows or columns to single values, yeah, with addition, subtraction. What do you think? I think you get hang of it, the idea. Yeah, that's what at the start I thought also said. You have to make your mind up. What is this for data structure? And I want to be a little like array or list-like, you know, and that's why I provided it to behave a little bit in this way. Yeah, and of course we have our elements to show you all the elements of the matrix, and our own cont also means content, so you can do set operation, but this is just a special case. The important stuff, what I'm heading is that I once provided the list method, I get basically all the set method for free, because the set methods are all work with the lists, and then I can look, have I this element, or are all the elements in the matrix, are these a subset of this set, or is this subset or is this set a subset of all elements in this matrix, or are there junctions, or what you know from your beloved or not so beloved math teacher. We all have it in Perl 6, and we got all the world is open just by providing the list method.
So a flat fit, right?
Yeah. Into a list.
So you wouldn't get multi-dimensional hyperoperators.
No. It's just that's why I had the other methods. List me the rows, list me columns, and then you get every list element is the list of the columns. Yep. Yeah. You can and then you can for instance, the matrix contains a 1. Yes or no? Maybe you want to know. Yeah, it's very straightforward. Yeah, it's because this one is so useful. I made this cont method, and this is what you've seen before. Yeah, because this is a special case, and it's overloaded. Works also on ranges. Yeah, so I can ask, have I a value in this matrix which is in this range? Yeah, maybe you want to know. I think it's useful. Yeah? And so on. There are many. I have to speed up a little. Still a lot of stuff. I don't think we will come to the fun stuff. Funny stuff. All right. Come to at least to the operators. Of course, as I gave the talk 2 or 3 years ago, Perl 6 is an operator-oriented language. We have lots of operators. We have lots of fun. And where would be the fun if I don't provide some operators on myself? Of course, not crazy ones, but who are in the realms of math and in Perl 6, like plus and such. For instance, you want to add matrices. Yeah, we have already an add method. Of course, that's what you needed, but you have also find to write a precedence level and stuff. By the way, the guy who said we have a heated discussion, I just started because of these problems, because I wanted some precedence to clear up some precedence level. But this is important. Yeah, so I can introduce. So the plus works also on matrices. No? Matrix object plus matrix objects, and I get as a return the sum. Yeah, like it's here, and this will give you. Yeah, other ops. Of course, you maybe want to negate your. You have the negated method, as I said, but I think everyone with a little education in math might expect a negated matrix if I put the minus before. You know, there's not much controversy here. Or or matrix explanation, which means multiply the matrix with itself. You know, it's just natural, and things I just provide just to fit in the framework. Yeah. Of course, matrices have dot multiplication, and as it is usual in Perl 6, we have the UTF variant and the non-UTF variant. So all people are included. This, of course, because it's the opposite, is the multiplication with the inverted one. It's just a handy shortcut. Yeah. We have, of course, tensor product, much important. Also, even if you make quantum stuff like I had to last semester, we need the tensor product. The official math sign for this is that, for tensor product. And the funny thing is, of course, we need the non-UTF version. I used the X one, was free, because for type, it makes even sense. Because what in Perl 6 the X does is logically almost the same. It does almost the same as or it is a logical continuation of. Also, what it does for in the tensor product is like the logical continuation of what the X does in Perl 6. So it just fits nicely. It's one of the solutions I'm very happy about. Yeah, of course you want to build the norm. Also, if you make the norm in math, you do it with these, and because we have circumfix operators, I can even optically represent nicely the norm. Of course, because you don't it's hard here to attach any names or so, or P or Q value. It is just a normal Euclidean norm, but that's what you in most cases want anyway. I was thinking about how to extend the syntax if you want something else, but it's not the current problem. Eigensystems are much more pressing problems now, which I don't have yet. And maybe let's say it's the last thing to stop on time. All the previous operators, they come just with it. They are there when you just say use math matrix. This one operator is different because we had signature overloading. This means this norm works just on math matrix. This means I don't step on anyone's toes. Yes? But in case I step on someone's toes, this means if I have here our operator without, it takes an array, which is very general. So it might, some other guy wrote an operator which takes an array. And so that's why I had to export it. Yeah, that's the precedence. I had to make it, that's old code. The discussion yesterday brought a good solution which I implemented just yesterday in the evening. I have to update my slide. That's not currently. So I can do it without braces. And this method is export This means I have to use math matrix and after it the tag colon and then you get imported the operator, and it's just a shortcut for constructor. Because 2 minutes over. Yeah, just a sentence. Because what I found very handy is just in the source code. Just wrote then an array or a string, like I said, and have your matrix. You don't have to type math matrix new, and so just on your matrix. It just fits nicely into it. And if I do the precedence as high as it in the new code, I can do it even doing without braces again. So just and then just a dot and put other methods just behind it, and it's all nicely. This is what actually started the discussion what the guy talked about. Thank you. Any question? Or we have, yes, please.
I said at the beginning that all your elements in your matrix have to be numeric.
Yes.
Have you considered that sometimes you want to use a matrix of Boolean values?
No, I'm not that smart. When I would want to need that, why I want to use that?
It could be for filtering things in your matrix or for...
Yes, makes sense.
I think it might be considered. Check it.
It requires some heavy lifting in the internals, but...
Bool is considered numeric.
Oh, So it's in the numerical, so it's non-issue.
It's considered a very small integer.
So I have
Separate type, but it,
yeah. So I have to provide a true, while it's called a true or false, and then it gets accepted by the numeric, and it's all good. Right? Fine. Thank you. I learned something too. Thank you.
I just double checked.
like yesterday. All right. Another question, or are we good? Oh, good. Thank you.